Hey y'all, welcome to Boundaries and Grace. Hi, happy Saturday. I'm Taylor Chandler. I'm helping you become the best person, have the best relationship. It's a two-in-one, and there are three ways to do it using my SER framework. You like that? We liked that intro last episode, y'all. Today we're going to talk about responsibility. We're going to dive right into it in just a few minutes. We're going to let people come in. Hey, y'all, happy Saturday. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a personal development coach. So, y'all, because all of the honestly, this is just the truth. Honestly, all the credentials are just starting to it gets kind of jumbled up, therapist, trainer, health coach, fitness nutrition specialist. At this point, it's personal development. It's called a personal development coach, right? Because there are so many ways that I like to go about health and wellness, but I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and I am a coach. So, for the sake of brevity and clarity, we'll call that personal development. Hey, y'all, good morning or good afternoon. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in East Coast time. Hi. Y'all, I help people who want to be the best person. I help people who want the best relationship, who want the two in one. I have three ways to do it. I have a new framework. I call it the SER framework. I like the hearts. I like the fire. I like 100s. I like all of that. Let's dive in. Today, we're going to talk about responsibility. Yes, accountability and responsibility are very much related. We're going to talk about that. Okay. We're going to talk about responsibility, and I will tell you why I choose to talk about responsibility. And I put that in the framework and not accountability. I'll tell you why that is. We've talked about self esteem and energy, the S and the E in the SER framework. Now we're going to talk about the R, responsibility. First, let's get a definition. We need to make sure we're talking about the same thing. This is from Oxford Languages, okay? Responsibility, the state or fact of having a duty to deal with something. The state or fact of having a duty to deal with something. Here are other definitions. The state of or fact of being accountable or to blame for something. Y'all, blame is not a bad word. If you did it, you did it. You are to blame. Okay. It's like don't blame me, but what if you did it though? Okay. So there's a state or fact of being accountable or to blame for something. A thing that one is required to do as part of a job role. Okay, we need to talk about roles at some point. We have to talk about roles as a when people don't have roles, we don't have order, we people don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Listen, if roles help everywhere else, roles also help in your relationship. We need to talk about that. A thing that one is required to do as part of a job, role, or legal obligation. These are other definitions of responsibility. And y'all, we're going to put all of this in the context of personal and relationship development because that's what I help people to do. Okay. Merriam-Webster dictionary says responsible definition of responsible is means to be able to answer for one's conduct. That's so important. Okay, especially we're talking about those two goals: be the best person, have the best relationship, high personal development, high relationship development. To be responsible, to be able to answer for one's own conduct and obligations. Quickly, let's talk about the difference between responsibility and accountability. Responsibility, forward looking. This is about the role, the duty, or the commitment you've taken on. It's what you're supposed to do, it's what's on your plate, it's the expectation. Accountability is backward looking. It's about answering for what you actually did or didn't do. It's owning the result, the outcome, the follow through. Here are some examples. Real examples of like the differences between responsibility and accountability. Responsibility, I'm responsible for showing up on time to the date. The accountability piece is if I didn't show up on time, I need to own that, apologize. I need to rebuild trust. I need to manage my time better. I need to work on my communication. That's the accountability. So I'm taking ownership for what I didn't do. I was responsible for doing it. That's forward looking. And I'm accountable for what I did or didn't do. Did I do what I was supposed to do? Another example, responsibility is my responsibility to develop myself, to work on myself, to develop the qualities that make me a good person and a good partner. Okay. That's like committing to things like emotional regulation, how to be a better communicator in your relationship, whatever. Accountability is when that doesn't go right. Like when my better self doesn't show up in the relationship, or when I if I lash out, if I avoid tough conversations, if I neglect my growth, I can't just blame other people. I have to own the impact of my behavior and make it right. Okay, so I'm responsible to work on myself. I'm accountable for what I do, or what I did or didn't do, and like what the work that I did or didn't do. So if I lash out, avoid tough conversations, or neglect my growth, being accountable means things like apologizing sincerely, recommitting to your growth, repairing the trust that you damaged, getting extra help to help with these parts of you so that you can get it right the next time. Responsibility is this is what I should do. Accountability is this is what I actually did or did not do. Sometimes a person is able, this happens a lot with couples, okay? This happens a lot with couples. Sometimes a person can admit they are responsible, but they don't do the accountability part. And that can feel like gaslighting. This happens a lot. This happens a lot. Where someone, and again, they're usually not saying, hey, I'll take responsibility for this, but I won't take accountability for it. Instead, you're just seeing it play out. Does that make sense? They know that they are supposed to do something, but they don't have the follow through that where they actually do it. And so I see this all the time. Tell me if this has ever happened to you. So you keep having conversations with your person about something you're dissatisfied about, something that's not going right. And when you're having the conversation, you feel like you're on the same page. They're like, "Yeah, I want to be that person." They're like, "Yeah, I want to show up for you that way. Yeah, I do want." So when you're having the conversation, somebody tell me. You're having a conversation and you leave being like, "I feel like we're on the same page," or you feel like you feel good about the conversation you're having because they're able to agree with the language that you're using. And then a month later, the thing that you talked about happened again, and then you start to feel like, are they playing with me? Am I crazy? Like, and then you start feeling like I got to record conversations because I'm confused. Or are you confused? Are you dumb? Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody where you really had to wonder, are you dumb? And not in a mean way, not in a mean way, not in a mean way, because you're like, you know what, I love you, but like, I like you, but there's something about this thing that happens between us where we have a conversation and you say you're going to stop doing something, but then you do it. And so it's like, is it memory loss? Is it a learning deficit? What do we need to do? Because I know that I know you remember the conversation we had. Why can't you remember to change your behavior? Okay? Like it happens all the time with people. So that can be confusing. At worst, you think that someone is like actively manipulating you, like on purpose. At best, they don't understand. Okay. So someone can be, and this is what, again, y'all, I want you to understand that difference between responsible and accountable. Someone can know that they are responsible for something, but they don't know how to, but they don't know how, or they don't want to be accountable for it. Meaning that I know I'm supposed to do it, but I either don't know how to do it, or I don't want to do it, but I know I'm supposed to do it. That's the difference. That's responsible. That's a responsibility and accountability conflict. Does that make sense, y'all? So again, you can be confused in conversations when someone is responsible, but they're not accountable. Here's some similarities. And you know what? Stop thinking about that other person. Think about yourself, because there are all some things that we're supposed to do. Okay, come on, come on. For every time you think about somebody else, think about two things for you. There's some things that we're supposed to do. You know you're supposed to do it. That's the responsibility part. You know the expectation is, or that the best thing for you to do would be to take ownership, to take responsibility of something, and you don't follow through. Simple. You're responsible. You want to be responsible, or you know your responsibility in it, but you lack accountability. Okay. Worse, and we'll talk about this in a bit, worse is when somebody actually points that out, like reflects to you that you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and then you get defensive and angry even though it's true you didn't do what you knew you were supposed to do, or what you agreed to do. By the way, y'all, here's what we're about to do. I didn't say this at the beginning, but right now what we're talking about is just getting grounded in what responsibility is, because we need to have a working definition of what we're talking about. After this, we're going to talk about we're going to talk about the role of responsibility in personal and relational development, why it's so hard for people to do, and what I'm seeing in sessions. I'm going to talk about at the end of this what I'm really seeing in sessions in real life. Okay, what I'm seeing when I'm working with couples, with men and women specifically, the issues I'm seeing with responsibility. We're going to talk about that at the end. We're almost done with getting grounded in what responsibility is. We'll talk about what makes this so hard, even though everybody knows that they're supposed to do it. And then we'll talk about what I'm actually seeing in the room and what needs to be done about it. So, two sides of the same coin. Responsibility is the commitment, accountability is the follow through. You rarely have one without the other. Taking responsibility without accountability is just talk. Accountability without responsibility is punishment without a purpose. When you hold someone accountable for something they were not responsible for, or they do not understand or know, and those are two different things. They do not know or understand what their responsibility is, and you're holding them accountable for what they were responsible for. We have a gigantic miscommunication. I'm talking about a miscommunication that creates divorce, literally. Literally. I'm talking about miscommunications that break families, children's and parents apart. That's a big problem. So I'm going to say that part again because you hear it serious, okay? Responsibility without accountability is just talk. Accountability without responsibility is punishment without a purpose. Okay. And when you hold someone accountable when they either don't know or don't understand their responsibility, it's a it's a fruitless conversation, and it's incredibly frustrating. Even if they really are responsible from an objective point of view, we could look on the outside in and say this person is responsible based on something like maybe morality, or maybe for some of you religion, or gender norms, or just being a good person. This person was responsible for showing up this way as a wife, as a husband, as a man, as a woman. You have an idea that they are responsible for something, and maybe many other people agree with you, and there's always people who don't, but there's an idea that you have that they're responsible for something. If that other person doesn't know or understand their responsibility, and you try to hold them you try to hold them accountable for what you believe they are responsible for, even if I would agree with you, you believe that they're responsible for it, doesn't mean that you're right, but you're right in your own eyes. And even I, or maybe someone else could agree with you. You believe, that's an important word. You believe that they're responsible for something, and you try to hold them accountable for what they don't know or don't understand. It's received like punishment with no purpose, for no reason. It feels like you're just beating me up. I don't recognize my responsibility in it. Are y'all following me? That's not an excuse. It is an explanation. And now look, I know very well it's not always someone not knowing or not understanding what their responsibility is. Sometimes someone knows, and sometimes someone understands, and they still don't want to do it. That happens too. I should make this a pie chart. Knowing, understanding, and then willingness. The knowing and the understanding makes you able. The willingness puts it into action. Without you being willing, you cannot you won't do it. You can do it, but you won't do it. Does that make sense? So when we have people either in real life or in the online space, you want to hold somebody accountable, but we haven't checked the knowledge, understanding, and commitment to the willingness to do the thing you are responsible for. That's checking for the accountability. Then when I try to hold you accountable, we have a very disruptive, disturbing, irritating, frustrating conversation that gets a lot of clicks for whatever reason. People like being in distress when they're watching. It's kind of a weird thing that people do. They like watching distressing videos online, especially about relationships. And that's what you're and I want that to help to illustrate what you're seeing, the undercurrent of what you're seeing in those kinds of conflicts between people. Does that make sense, y'all? So even in your own relationship, right? Because this isn't just about what relationships are that's happening online. This is real life. So even in your own relationship, you try to hold someone accountable, but you haven't checked knowledge and understanding and then willingness to be responsible, putting responsibility in action, that's the accountability piece, then you're having a very stagnant conversation. When someone doesn't know or someone doesn't understand, but they are willing, they're worth being coached. When someone knows, and especially when they understand, but they are not willing, they should be left behind. They should be left to their own devices. Okay. But you need to understand you are responsible first in order to take accountability. This is what I believe. The amount of responsibility I am willing to take is directly related to the amount of control I have over the direction of my life. Remember, y'all, if you're not intentionally going up, you're going down. And when I say going up, I mean becoming a better person. And I really, this is where I leave, my model of how I work is flexible, meaning I have a structure and a framework, but there's flexibility for your individuality, meaning you going up, you becoming a better person has to be aligned with your values and vision for your life. Okay, that's going up. Being a better person, I do think, is essentially going into like pro social behaviors and qualities. I do believe that. I think we all believe that that's becoming a better person. We all have a general idea of what a better of what a good person does and what a bad person does. Okay, but when it comes to when I say like we all need to be going in a certain direction, I think that means we all need to be getting better. And then you're in your individuality, like your desires, your goals, your vision, your values, like your really unique values, should be your ultimate destination and nobody else. Like someone can't tell you what that is. Like that's something you need to determine for yourself. So remember, if you're not intentionally going up, you're going down. Going up is being a better person, and on a more individualized level, it's going in the direction of your vision and values. We're going to be talking a lot about that for the foreseeable future. Vision and values is so important. So understand this. If I am not intentionally going in the direction of my vision and values, I am going somewhere else. I'm not even going to define that for you. I'm not going to say it's going to be bad. I'm not going to say your life's going to fall apart. I'm not going to say you lose everything. I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but it's going to be somewhere else other than what your original intention was, or what your, I should say, maybe not even original intention, but your realized intention, like your higher, your ideal, your higher self, your higher vision, higher goals. If you're not intentionally going in the direction of your vision and values, you are going somewhere else. And I've been using this metaphor lately a lot with clients, like and I didn't come up with this, I heard this somewhere. What you really don't want to happen, what you really do not want to happen is you climb a mountain and you realize you're at the wrong peak. So you can be going in a direction and it can be productive and positive, and you could hit peak, and you can hit a peak and you could hit more peaks. But if it's not your peak, if it's not aligned with at your core, your vision and values, you'll spend a lot of time climbing a mountain that doesn't mean to you what you thought it would mean to you, because you realize that it wasn't the peak that mattered. It wasn't the fact that you succeeded, it's what you succeeded in, and it's how you went about it. And it's what the reward that you received from it. And so sometimes you're chasing something that's somebody else's vision and values, and you end up succeeding and achieving, and then but you're empty because it's not aligned with your vision and values. So you have to get clear on that. If I'm not intentionally going in the direction of my vision and values, I'm going somewhere else. The most confusing place to be when you haven't been intentionally going in the direction of your vision and values, but you've been moving. The most confusing thing is when you get good results. That's actually confusing. It's actually confusing when you're going in a direction that's not your vision and values, but it was somebody's, whether it came from society, media, culture, whatever, your parents, your friends, and you're getting positive feedback, but something in you doesn't resonate. I'm not even going to go down there. We're going to talk about that another time. So If I'm not intentionally going up, I'm going down. If I'm not intentionally going in the direction of my vision and values, I'm going somewhere else. The closer I can align my vision and values, the more fulfilled I am. So the more responsibility I take, the better. Are we seeing how that all works out? The more simple, the more responsibility you take, the better. So then the more accountable you are, the better. Because if I am accountable, then when I miss the mark, I correct. And so I am regularly and consistently coming back into alignment, which is my integrity. And then I'm consistent outwardly, because your consistency is a reflection of your integrity. Your integrity is your internal alignment. How close are you to your values and goals on a day to day, moment to moment basis? And the way to get more aligned is by taking more responsibility, because the more responsibility you take, the more control you have over the direction of your life, how closely you adhere to your values and your vision. I'm going to put this on a visual kind of equation way where you can see it super simple. I'm going to put that on my site. I just put a blog up about energy that's related to the energy episode from last week. I just put that up today, so that's there. Y'all are getting it? So we're going to talk about what makes this hard for people individually, what makes this hard for people in relationship, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm actually seeing in the therapy room, coaching room, in session, in session. Let's talk about what makes this hard. Let's talk about what makes this hard. So you can understand yourself better and understand other people better. What makes this hard? We'll talk about what makes this hard. Okay. What makes this hard as an individual and as a single person? What makes this hard? I decided to, let's do the empathetic one first. Let's do the empathetic one first. You're burdened with other responsibilities. Listen to me, this is very important. Y'all, it's really important, especially if you're single and you want to be in a relationship. That's anybody that is really that is, especially my clients. You can be single, but one of your goals is relationship. I specifically am focused on people who want that. Okay. Not as your ultimate life saver, okay, but as a part of your life, you're comfortable saying, yeah, you would like a healthy, secure relationship to be a part of your thriving life. Okay. um what was I about to say, y'all? I can't remember. Let's move on. Can't remember. But what makes taking responsibility hard as an individual or as a single person? Number one, you're burdened with other responsibilities. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Y'all. Um, the reason why I just said that a minute ago was because if you're someone who wants a relationship, working with me, you literally have to become more empathetic. There it is. Look at that, empathetic. You literally have to become more empathetic. And so as you're listening to this, you might hear some of you, but you also, what I'm asking people to do, individuals, specifically single people who want relationship, is this is how you also have empathy for somebody else's experience, because you're not the only one that has some kind of struggle or some kind of difficulty, or you become overwhelmed, or you become, right, like, you get that at this point, like, that that sometimes might happen to you, and other people can have those experiences too, which makes it difficult for them to show up the way that they would prefer. Okay. So we need to develop some empathy for people and grace. All right. Of course, I'm also an advocate of boundaries. At this point, that should go without saying. I'm an advocate for boundaries, but we need grace. That's why the podcast is called Boundaries and Grace. We need to always be balancing that out. Number one, what makes responsibility hard as an individual? You're burdened with other responsibilities. You really are a responsible person. Maybe you see yourself, you are responsible for other people, your work, your family, and you really haven't taken time and space to get a hold of yourself. And even taken could be a difficult word for someone, because you might not even think you have the choice to take time and space for yourself. And then you're triggered again because I said you think you don't. And now I'm suggesting that you do have a choice, but you just haven't taken it yet. And that can be challenging for someone who this applies to, because you already feel so burdened with responsibility that when someone suggests that you are irresponsible or not accountable in some part of your life, you're looking at all of these other places where you are so responsible that you're offended and defend and you want to defend yourself. Okay. Gentlemen, I want to talk right to you for a moment. I want to talk first. I want to talk to men for a moment. And I want you to understand that if you're a man about to hear me, um, what I'm about to say might be difficult for some of you who agree with me when I call women out, but you have a hard time when I call men out. There's some of y'all that are like that. Okay. That means you're really not with me. You think that you are, but you're really not. So let's just be clear on that right now. I'm going to say this for men. Men, there really are women who are overburdened, overworked, overtaxed. If your first line of defense, if your first rebuttal against that is, well, women shouldn't have fought to be equal. Honestly, okay, like I think me and you probably shouldn't. You probably need a little bit of time to kind of think before me and you really get into some work together, because we have to confront this hardness around this, where as if women are just, first of all, shouldn't have fought to be equal. I can't even have this conversation with you today. I'm not even going to go down that road for myself. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go back to my point. Gentlemen, there really are women who are overworked, overburdened, overtaxed. However they got there is one thing, but I'm talking about where some women are right now. I'm not saying that's everybody. Do I know laziness exists on both sides? Absolutely. I can just see it in the numbers. I don't even have to meet you. We can see the laziness in the simple data points. All right. So a range of qualities exist with men and women. There are some women, just like there are some men, who are overtaxed, overburdened, and such. And so when you are when you are implying, suggesting, insisting, or explicitly even, just outright, calling a responsible woman irresponsible, or imply or saying she lacks accountability, when there's all these other areas that you see she's responsible for, then we have a management issue, not necessarily a responsibility issue. I'm responsible, but I'm overtaxed, and so um, balls drop, plates drop, and if you cannot even have compassion for that, like to understand that happens to people, I don't think that you're honestly, I don't think that you have enough compassion to be in a healthy relationship. Like there's some things that are simple, just like how I would think that if a woman cannot understand the pressure, to attempt to understand and have compassion for the types of pressure that men are under to financially provide for their families and all the things that comes with that. If you are not prepared to have compassion for that and empathy for that and have an understanding of like what that dynamic is like for them, I don't think that you have compassion enough to be in a healthy relationship, because there are some things that exist for both men and women, and for humans in general. There's some things that exist in people's struggle, in the way that if you cannot understand if you can't give basic grace for normal struggle, I don't think that you're prepared to be in a relationship. And so in this case, I'm specifically highlighting where women can be overburdened, overtaxed, overstressed, all these things, taking responsibility a bunch of it, because women are getting beat up on the accountability piece. And I get it. I'm going to talk about the reality of that. Trust me. But I am also going to say this, that that's part of the reason why you're getting a lot of pushback right in your personal life, or you can see that online as well, especially when you can see that a woman is responsible in many other areas, but is dropping the ball in the relationship part. That's not necessarily a character defect of being irresponsible or lacking accountability. It can be a management issue, time management, energy management, prioritization, things like that. Okay. So I just want to say that I could go on and on and on. I could go on for hours about that, but I think that's very important. It's really important that we make sure we have a holistic view. of humans and men and women. Okay. If you have any question about, my stance on that, I would say go listen to the Industrious Woman episode where we talk about some of those conflicts and struggles that women have that also are balancing a really heavy workload and how that has manifest in deficiencies in their relationship life. So if you have any questions about where I stand on that, please go listen to those episodes. Okay. But I'm definitely not about being anybody else. I think everybody needs to look at themselves and get better. Okay. So that can make it difficult for someone to take responsibility. They're already overburdened. Number two, you may have been enabled, coddled, or misinformed by family, by society, by culture, social media. You may have been enabled, coddled, or misinformed, leading you to believe you are not only relieved of your responsibilities to improve, but it wasn't your responsibility in the first place. Okay. I'm going to say this because I do think it's important that sometimes I have some levels of self-disclosure. I think this is especially problematic for uh, Black people. I see this issue of enabling coddling and being misinformed about responsibility from the Democratic Party. And I see it with people with minority status. It's really not funny. It's really not. I can't even laugh at this point at that. It's kind of, I understand that these groups can really dislike the pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality because it ignores, well, I'm not saying, and I'm also not saying this is the only reason why you don't like it, but I think one of the reasons you don't like it is one of the reasons why you don't like the pull yourself up by your bootstraps or the responsibility and accountability conversations is because one big reason is because seems to ignore systemic oppression. I think that's one of the big myth, like the resistance against the responsibility and accountability conversation by minority status people, Black people, women, and then also the Democratic Party that enables, coddles, and even like literally facilitates victimhood on purpose. I really don't think I want to go down this rabbit hole today. I'm running out of time here, but I'm not trying to do this for longer than an hour today. Um, the Democratic Party does facilitate a victim mindset. I'm not saying the Democratic Party is bad. I'm not saying the Republican Party is good. I'm not saying the Republican Party is bad. I'm not saying the Democratic Party is good. What I am saying, though, is that there's clearly a difference in the mentality that is espoused by either party, generally speaking, in the mass media. So sometimes that pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which is a much more conservative mentality. Okay. Now that's, again, I'm speaking very generally because it's not a political episode. Very conservative mentality. A lot of people don't like that on the side because it seems to ignore systemic oppression. But here's the thing: you are responsible for your outcomes regardless of your opposition. You are responsible for your outcomes. That's the bottom line. I want to do a better job going forward acknowledging systemic oppression because I do think it's important that we don't act like it's not real because it is. It literally is. Like, come on, like it like literally is real. At the same time, I think it needs to be rightfully placed. Like it needs to be rightfully placed, not magnified, not pedestalized, not identified with. It needs to be rightfully placed in context. Okay. So we can acknowledge systemic oppression and also say, like, regardless of my opposition, I am responsible for my outcomes. So I want to do a better job of acknowledging systemic oppression. I also want to give money and time to causes that help people open up opportunities for themselves so that they are able to have choice that some of us take for granted, that do have choice and privilege. Okay. And a lot of that, y'all, is not in America. If you in America, 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 the land of the free, the home of the brave, that one, if you're in America, you just not that oppressed. You're just not. And I'm just now that whole very like heartfelt speech I just gave you. I also, this is me too. Like that's all true. That's all real. This is real too, though. If you're in America, you are so free compared to parts of the world. Have you seen what's going on in Palestine? So people need help. People need real help, like that don't have access to, they don't have choice and privilege like we do. So anyway, I want to do a better job of, yes, acknowledging systemic oppression, and also helping people who don't have access to the choice that is such a core part of my beliefs. Like my foundation of my beliefs and my practice rest on choice. It's like if we don't have choice, everything that I help people to do literally falls apart because you need choice. So for people in the world that don't have choice, they don't have these kinds of strategies that we're able to employ in the United States for our mental health, our emotional health, financial health, physical health, spiritual health, all of that. Everybody doesn't have that. And so that's why I'm, especially when you're a little more aware, have some kind of global perspective or awareness, then especially when you're in America, you should be among the last ones on the planet, even if you're black, even if you're a woman. We should be some of the last people on the planet talking about you oppressed and down bad, because we have so many different ways to choose our way and to make a better way. Okay, so let's keep going. So you may have been enabled, coddled, or misinformed, leading you to believe that you're not only relieved of your responsibilities to improve, but it wasn't. But you might also be led to believe that it wasn't your responsibility in the first place. Sometimes people that have been in church, like deep in it, they become sort of helpless, like an enabled, coddled, misinformed person. Not that I think church is bad, not that I think God is bad. Like that's not it. It's that sometimes people use spiritual bypassing to ignore the responsibility that they actually need to take in their own life. And it's a God will do it thing rather than you need to do it. Thanks, Terry. All right. Uh-oh, Siri, not you. Talking to Terry, not you. Not you. Okay, why is it so hard to take on responsibility in relationship? Y'all, I think we're going to be done out of here in about 10 minutes. Why is it so hard to take responsibility in relationship? After this, we're going to talk about what I'm saying in session, then we're out of here. Number one, this first one's not that deep. I just think it's human nature to find fault. I think that it's just easy and it's a reactive part of us that looks around to blame someone or something for something that's gone wrong. Because I think it's just easy to blame someone else. I think it's human nature. I think that's why when you look at like Romans 8, I think it's Romans 8, we're talking about the two natures of a person, like right, your carnal nature and your spiritual nature. I think like the carnal, you can put it like that, you can frame it like that. I think the carnal nature, and that's what's like blame other people and like be a victim to our own lives, or like the spiritual nature takes responsibility and ownership for the direction of your life. Okay. So I just think we have a battle between our two natures. And if you're not intentional about what nature you're going to align with, you will just fall to the lower one. Because what if you're not intentionally going up, you are going down. Why else do I think it's so hard for people to take responsibility in relationship, whether that's man or woman? I see it with both, but we are going to talk about what I'm seeing with women though, because it's just consistent. Like I know that things happen on both sides, but we do have some gendered expressions of these issues. So it's also hard to take responsibility in relationship because I call this the chicken or the egg problem. You heard that, like which came first, the chicken or the egg? And that's a it's like a way of saying that you really don't know what started what. It's hard to tell what the origin point is, the chicken or the egg. One of the reasons why that makes it difficult to take responsibility. Yeah, I am on TikTok, same handle. Hey, Ranita. One of the reasons why it's difficult for people to take responsibility is because the chicken or the egg problem. You and your partner are always affecting each other, co creating every single interaction together. It's a mutual feedback loop. So you both are giving, there's a dynamic exists between you and everyone. It's a dynamic. Okay. So in a partnership, in a relationship, in your marriage, you've got a dynamic of two, you got these two people always creating an experience together. It's a dynamic. The quality, the nature of the dynamic depends on the two individuals making it up. And so it's a mutual feedback loop. Both people, the quality and the nature of the dynamic is dependent on what both people are bringing to the dynamic. So it's a mutual feedback loop. Because of that, when there's an issue that comes up in relationship, it's very easy to justify your actions based on what the other person did that caused you to behave that way, right? I'll give you a simple example. Someone says, "Stop blowing up my phone. You sent me 10 messages and you know I'm in a meeting." The other person says, "Well, I wouldn't have sent those messages if you would have just sent me the good morning text like you always do. I thought there was something wrong." You see how that's a justify? I justify the 10 text messages and interrupting the meeting because you did not give me the good morning text. This is such a this issue comes up, I think, in every single couple that I've ever worked with and probably ever will. It's just so normal for this to be an issue that until you learn how to step out of it, because this would have, you can justify why you did something by looking at that other person's behavior. That's not the point though. That's why that strategy never ever works. That strategy does not work because you justifying the behavior that someone didn't like is not a resolution. It's just an irritant because what they need is that behavior to change. Now, the nuance is that they also need to understand, in the example I use, that they had a behavior that helped you to behave in that way. That's the most ideal kind of situation you have in a couple conflict, where you are both able to take accountability for the behavior that you did that was an irritant, and the other person is able to see how they impacted you to behave in that way. The only way that works, that ideal situation works, is when you trust that the other person is acting in good faith. Because if you can't trust that you will take accountability for your behavior, and you can't trust, let me say that again. If I can't trust that you'll take accountability for your behavior, if I can't trust that you will take accountability for the way that you've impacted me, then I'm not safe enough to correct my own behavior, because I do my behavior because you're doing yours. So I have to. This is a mutual, simultaneous, parallel process. Both. This is the simplest way to put it. Both people must change at the same time. I can't wait. I put it like this: both people need to have a go first mentality. Are y'all following me? Both people need to have a go first mentality. All go first. When you got a recurring conflict in a couple, this is the trick. This is the winning attitude couple. This is the highly synergistic couple that I talked about in the last 2 episodes. When you have two people who have a go first mentality, all change first, we're gold. Because I don't wait for you. I trust that you're going to do what you got to do, and I got to do what I got to do to change this dynamic between us. Whenever one person's holding, we have an issue. Even if they were the one that was hurt the most, if you're holding, you actually become the problem. You get that? So the chicken or the egg problem gets people stuck all the time because you're justifying your behavior by referring to the other person's behavior rather than taking accountability for your own. Most of the time, because you can't trust that the other person will also take responsibility for the way they impacted you. So chicken or the egg issue, it's hard to tell who started what and who's responsible for what. It's a never ending loop until you can get to the fact that you are responsible. So there's two things. One, but both, it's a mutual trust that needs to happen. We both need to go first. We both need to adjust. I need to adjust how I impacted you to become that way, and you need to adjust your behavior, the thing that you did when you became that way. So we need that. But that's step two. Most people want step two because you want the other person to do something. This is a lot, y'all. This is real game for real. Like, this will help. This is gonna help somebody. That's why, anyway. But if I put this in a reel, it doesn't work. The only things that work in a reel is when I say, like, you're trash, and people are like, yeah. But when I actually just save your whole relationship, it's like, I gotta put that, that's why you gotta put it in long form content. Anyway, a lot of people want to get to step two, right? They want the other person to change, or they're like, let's do it together. But what you need to understand first is that you are responsible, or I should say, primarily, what you need to understand first and foremost, the most primary thing is that you're responsible for your action regardless. Whatever that person did to impact you, that's real, that's valid. We can work with that. But regardless, you are responsible for your behavior. And you have and we need that in the highly synergistic couple. That's a principle. Both people have to know and believe that that's true. I'm responsible for my behavior regardless of what you do to help me to get that way, to trigger me to that space, to whatever. Regardless of how you pushed me, how you pressed me, how you did whatever, I'm still responsible for my behavior regardless. Number three, and then we're going to talk about what I'm seeing in session. Number three, why it's so hard to take responsibility in relationship. Third thing, you actually think the other person is responsible for a negative interaction or a negative dynamic. You actually believe that the other person is primarily, if not wholly, responsible for the negative dynamic. When you really think that the other person is wholly or majority, like huge majority, responsible for your whole negative dynamic in your relationship, it makes it hard for you. I'll say this first. It makes it hard for you to take responsibility and accountability for your part because you've already framed it in your mind that it's not, none of this is your fault, or it's hugely the other person's fault. So you hardly have anything to do with it. This is when you have actually applied some kind of reasoning, your thinking process. You've actually applied some kind of reasoning to come to the conclusion that someone else has to change or something else has to change in order for you to change. That makes it hard for you to take responsibility and accountability for your part. But you have to remember, again, y'all, I think I already, dug this today. Relationships are mutual feedback loops. You both are always affecting it through the choices you make and how you show up. You both are responsible for the current state of the relationship. You both are responsible for the current state of the relationship. And I'm going to say the thing that's going to be difficult for a lot of people to hear. This is not, see, I'm already trying to put a disclaimer on it because I know how it's going to land. That one of the, this is tough. It's tough. It's hard for me to say this to you. Even when it comes to cheating, y'all, even when it comes to cheating, a lot of times someone isn't always dating a serial cheater, although those people do exist and they have real issues. Those are the people who are like actual narcissistic types, like actual, like diagnosable people who just hurt people because they don't have they don't have like a conscience. Okay. Those are like sociopathic people. That's a very small majority of people. I mean, we're talking about like 0.9% of the population or something like that. So when it comes to cheating, most often someone, whether it's a man or woman, they're not getting what they needed in the relationship. That's not blaming the other person for the cheater's decision to cheat. Okay. But when you can understand context and understand, like, oh, my person wouldn't have done this if I was showing up this way, that's not taking the blame. That's understanding the mutual feedback loop that your relationship is always in. And there could be something you are or are not doing that is helping a person get to a place where now they're stepping outside of the relationship. That's not me excusing cheating at all. If you choose to mishear it, or misperceive it, or misrepresent me on that, that's on you. I'm not excusing cheating at all, but I am saying there's a sequence. The relationship is a dynamic, and there are sequences of events that create certain outcomes. And cheating isn't cheating. I think one of the most unhelpful things that we do about cheating is say, I can't control. I mean, if that's on, if you cheated, that's on you. Like, I can't, what I'm not going to do is take. That's not about me. No, but miss, if I may, miss, if I may, miss. No. It's not on you. It's not it's not a literal reflection of you. You didn't deserve it. All of that stuff. Yes, miss. Okay. I get it. But I think what that's done, y'all, unfortunately, is it's put up a defense, and it sounds good. Like, it sounds right. Like, oh, I'm not supposed to take someone's, you did this to me. I'm not supposed to take that on myself. Like, I'm not going to make that about me, and I'm not going to get down on me because you went out and did something. I get it. But when that prevents you from seeing how you weren't showing up, sir, in your relationship, and that's kind of how they got so dissatisfied and frustrated and upset and resentful, and then they went and did that thing that I know they said that they would never do, and that's wrong, and we need to be held accountable for that. We need to really own that. That's very, very true. But if we can't, if we never get to the whole picture, and that's why cheating is so bad, because then the cheater loses a lot of credibility, and it makes it difficult for now the cheater to say, well, babe, like, look at what I was going through. Because now you've done something that was so offensive, and so, it's such a big infraction based on probably the terms of your relationship, that they don't want to hear you. But one of the best things you can do, I think, if you're in that situation, the only hope, I think, of you really getting through that kind of thing is being willing to see that this was a dynamic that was created, and it was mutually created. And I don't have to take responsibility for no one, right? I is you. You do not have to take and shouldn't take responsibility for that person's behavior. But what you can do is take responsibility and accountability for how you've affected the dynamic to where these things even become options and then choices. I know that's tough, but look, we need to talk about real life, because on the internet, people will tell you to do all kinds of stuff. And I'm using cheating as an example because everybody knows what I'm talking about, and people have very strong feelings about it. And but if you can understand it around like cheating, like that concept of understanding context in a dynamic, then you can understand it with many other things that are going to happen in the relationship. I'm not saying cheating should happen or does happen in every relationship at all. I'm using it to model this dynamic of empathy, of context, and of mutual feedback loops. I don't know how much more clear I could be, but that's not gonna people are still gonna misunderstand that. But oh well. So replace cheating with communication issues. Replace cheating with withholding intimacy. Replace cheating with disrespectful language. Replace cheating with a bunch of stuff that you don't like either, and see how, okay, if that happened to me, that would be like a trump card. Like, you are not allowed to do that to me. Okay, but when you wonder, how did someone get to a place of doing that to me? That's where you really start to open your perspective. How did you get to a place where you were calling me that? How did you get to a place where you said that to me? I'm not saying you shouldn't be mad about whatever they said. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. I'm not saying they should be held accountable. They should change their behavior. They should never do it again. All of that kind of stuff. I give it all to you. But when you step back and say, "What? Tell me more about the me you were getting that had you go to that bar like that. Like, tell me about how you're experiencing me that had you call that person like that had you send that text. Tell me about, let me look at me, because does that make sense, y'all? I don't want to keep going because that's a very few people that can do something like that. But everybody needs to be able to do it for your own sake. Let's talk quickly about what I'm seeing in session. Thanks, Terry. All right. Are y'all all good there? Was that hard? Was that tough? People got all kinds of non-negotiables, all kinds of things, but it's like, you know what? When you look at how they got to be like that with you probably find something out that you need to know about you, because you're irritating people, you're sending people, and that's what we don't want to take. A lot of people, we don't like to take accountability, take responsibility for how you're sending people to damn hell with the way you're acting, and you're pushing people. And here's my issue: when you push people off the edge and get mad that they went off the edge, and that's all you want to talk about. That's all you want to talk about. is when they popped off, when they finally, and that's the word that y'all don't want, you don't want to talk about. They finally, because what people don't, we don't like to give credit for all of that time that you tried to hold it together, all that time you tried to breathe through it, all that time you tried to, I'm gonna try to, take it easy, give grace, be patient, but you pushing somebody. And then when they do, and then now when they did something that you don't like, it's like you only want to talk about them when they went off the edge. But I want to talk about how you were pushed. I want to talk about the push. I want to talk about both. I want to talk about both. Yes, I jumped off the edge. Yes, you pushed me to the edge. And those pushes, we should understand those pushes. All right, let's go in. Last thing, y'all, what I'm seeing in session, this may or may not, but see, when I got to stop with the disclaimers. I said I was going to stop doing that. Last point, y'all, let's go. Last point. Here's what I am seeing in session. Men are having a much easier time with responsibility and accountability. Okay. Society, why do I think this is happening? One reason is because society and culture does not delude men about their responsibility and accountability. It holds them to a standard that women are not held to at mass, okay, as a society and culture. That is a gap. It is a crucial gap between the way that men are socialized to view responsibility and accountability and the way that women are socialized to relate to responsibility and accountability. It is a crucial gap that I think I'll do what I can, y'all. But society and culture really doesn't delude men and holds them to a standard. I'm seeing in session that men are having a much easier time with owning their impact on a dynamic. It's a lot easier with men that I work with. It is almost always just a really reasonable conversation. I understand men really, really well. And sir, super not helpful, really not helpful. It's destroying your relationship. It is an unhelpful way of thinking. It's destructive patterns. These things are all boop, 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 boop. If you change this is what's going to happen. Can you see why this makes sense? Can you see how this is helpful for you first? And also for this relationship? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, you're going to change it. Okay. So seeing men have a much easier time. It is not like that with the huge majority of women. I can count, I think, on one hand out of my 5 years of practice, where from the beginning, 5 years of private practice, from the beginning, or count on my hand, on one hand, how many women were from the beginning, they were that way and open. Okay. But there are women, right, who are like that or who become like that. That's more often the case, where a woman I'm working with becomes more open to seeing her accountability in a situation. The difference between open women and closed women is huge. The difference between open women and closed women is huge. And by open and closed, what I'm referring to is open to reflection, open to introspection, open to taking responsibility, accountability, open to looking at yourself and owning your impact. Open versus closed women. The difference between open and closed women is huge. I mean, the two of you are giving off in totally different vibes. You're giving a whole different experience, to the point where for my pretty girls, the less attractive girls, and by the way, ladies, yes, it exists. There's less attractive and there's more attractive. It just is. Like, people are just kind of generally more attractive than other people sometimes, and vice versa. Ladies, for the pretty girls, the less attractive, physically attractive ladies who can be open to feedback are blowing you out the water. This is not high school anymore. This isn't middle school. This is real life. Men have lives on the line literally, like your life. When you talk about somebody marrying you, you're talking about them intertwining their life, hooking their life up to you. Okay. It's not like when you didn't have anything to lose. Okay. Like, it's not like when you have anything. The only place at this point where looks are getting you what you, or where looks are doing something for you is in the short term and in non-serious situations, like it's for entertainment. That's the only time that that really works at this point. Okay. I'm going to talk about the closed women first, which is the majority. Women have why do women have a much harder time with responsibility and accountability? We talked a little bit about the society and culture piece. Why are women having a hard time with how they're impacting the relationship negatively? um, Number one, and this isn't even on my notes, but I'm realizing how I just wrote these notes. I said how they're impacting the relationship negatively. First of all, if you do not believe that you can impact a relationship negatively, you cannot take accountability for it. I mean, there have literally been times where just the fact alone, where I have confronted a woman in session about the fact alone that she could have behaviors that are negatively influenced and dynamic, which is just a reality that's true for everybody. Like there have been times where a woman has fought that, like as if it couldn't be true, but it's literally true for everybody. Like that's a level of denial that like there's no problem solving on top of that. Like until you can't even, you haven't even gotten the first part right. Like you can't even see the very simple reality that we all have negative impacts on the dynamic. We can't solve a problem with you because you don't even believe you are a problem. Like you don't believe you could be a problem. So why would you try to solve it? You don't believe that you don't believe you could have a problem, like bring a problem to a relationship. That's some people's issue right there from the ground floor. From the ground floor. That's not everybody's issue. That's some people from the ground floor. They don't even believe they could be a problem. Um, what I'm seeing in session is women justifying their behavior. We talked earlier about the chicken and the egg thing, justifying behavior. So that I wouldn't have done this unless you did that. I only do this because you do that. Blaming the other person and ultimately like kind of feeling superior, like feeling morally superior than the other person, the man. So blaming the other, kind of like projecting their shortcomings on the other, or projecting their disappointment with where they are in life onto the man. So blaming the other person rather than taking ownership responsibility for their own decisions, and steering their own life in the direction that they want it to go. And what I'm also seeing is that when women have a hard time with responsibility, with how they're impacting a relationship negatively, they can cut off completely. So they either like try to leave the relationship, leave therapy, leave coaching. They like leave. They ghost somebody when they are being that type of person, that type of woman who has a hard time with responsibility. They can end up like cutting off. And also what I see is that women that have an issue with responsibility and accountability in session is that if they don't cut off, they come back with resentment. Like they come back trying to prove something, like they do like at work or with, or like they keep, like they'll show up to be like, I've literally had people say something like this to me, like, I'm not scared of you, Taylor. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, why would I want you to be scared? But it's because that's how they see it in their head. It's like them being confronted with reality. Now they feel like we're antagonists to each other rather than it's helpful to see this person's helping me to see myself. They put someone who is helping to see themselves in the antagonist role, like an enemy. And so then like when we're actually confronting those parts of them, they start to feel like I have to show, if I don't cut you off, if I don't stop coming, if I don't blame you or Taylor or whatever for my issues, I'm going to show up because I want to show you that I'm not scared of you. Whether and they want to show their partner, they want to show me, and it's like you're kind of missing the whole point. They're being serious, but they're not serious people. But they're being serious to the extent that they're able, and that's the sad part. I mean, what I've seen men put up with in session, it has been, some stuff is really alarming. And what I see men, that's why we're going to talk a lot more about the disempowered man and the entitled woman. Men are still, it's like sometimes y'all are trying to protect the woman in session. So it's like you don't want to call it out. You don't want to like react negatively because you know that it's going to make it even worse when you get off, because now she's not going to be mad, not just at you for whatever she's decided to be mad at you about, but she's also going to be mad that you called it out in session in the presence of somebody else, especially a woman. I'm seeing men put up with these alarming behaviors, not saying anything about, afraid to say anything because you think it's going to be worse. And honestly, it would be worse with these types of women. It would be worse after you get off. If you did say something, it's really bad. Where open women are receiving, like when it comes to feedback, okay? We're open, but women who are more open, they're receiving, reflecting, they're adjusting. Where closed women are rejecting, deflecting, and resisting. Women, you have to adjust this. And again, I'm talking, if I was seeing something different, if I was seeing a different prevalent issue, I would talk about that. But the reality is it's this issue. It's this issue that I'm seeing a lot. Okay. Where I'm not even going to keep going on that. We'll keep talking about it in an ongoing way later. Women, you have to adjust this. You have to adjust this. I do not think a man should marry a woman who cannot consistently show herself to be responsible and accountable, to be responsible for herself and her impact. Okay. The issues that come with an irresponsible, non accountable person in marriage, specifically in the context of marriage. And then when we say from the man's shoes, the issues that come with a woman who is irresponsible and not accountable are too numerous. And I don't think that a man should marry a woman who can't be responsible and accountable. I think that should just be a non-negotiable. That's what I think. Now you can define whatever standards you want. I think because of how beneficial it is when it's there and how detrimental it is when it's not there, I would ask everyone to consider it to be consider making it a non-negotiable and understanding how important it is. Okay. Like that is not something to wait until after you're married to see if you have the opportunity to get that in order now, you should do that. Because when you get married and if it's not there beforehand and you get married, when the real issues come up, it's going to be very, very challenging. People that are not able to take accountability and take responsibility make conflict essentially impossible. The cards are always stacked against you because they will ensure that they are stacked against you. They will refuse to participate in the rebuilding and the resolving and the reconciling because they won't actually think that they have a responsibility in it. Okay. If you want to work with me, y'all, if you want to work with me as an individual or as a couple, use the interest form that's in my bio, subscribe on YouTube, leave a review on Apple if you would. I really appreciate that. I'm also on Spotify. All links are in my bio. Y'all, I'm Taylor Chandler. I help people get the best relationship and be the best person using 3 different methods in my SER framework. Y'all, I hope that you have a really great Saturday and I'll see you next time. Bye.